So let's focus a bit more on you and your journey. How did you, Mark Sidney, discover mindfulness?
It's a long journey in many ways and a short journey in other ways. I was taught to meditate, not mindfulness. I suspect, I don't know for sure, that what I was being taught was something this teacher had learned at a Buddhist centre. And it was a very strict Catholic school. But he used to come in, take a class when a teacher was on the sick, and he would tell us campfire horror stories like The Monkey's Paw, and there was a wonderful one about an immortal soldier and all the wars he'd fought in. And I only have snippets of memories of those stories.
Oh, I was going to ask you to tell me them.
It was what he did when he couldn't be asked to tell stories, where he'd get us to sit and focus on our breath or focus on the contact with the floor and the chair and just to notice that. And he'd get us to sit for minutes, tens of minutes sometimes, just doing that. And we thought it was weird.
It almost sounds like, when parents go, let's play the be quiet game and let's see who can be quiet the longest.
Yeah, it was a little bit. But I found it quite calming. I didn't find it that difficult. A lot of my classmates found it really irritating and didn't like it at all. And for the next 20 odd years, I did it now and again, mainly when shit happened, when bad things happened to me in my life. There was some very traumatic stuff happened to me at the end of my first year at university, and immediately after the trauma, the first thing I went and did was go somewhere where I could be still, where I could be quiet, where I could just let go of it all. And I found that really soothing and really helpful and cleansing. I'm not saying it didn't solve the trauma or anything. I also spent an awful lot of time, probably about the next 6 or 7 weeks, using quite a lot of ways to self-medicate, mainly alcohol, but a few other things as well. And I also talked about it to people, and some of that was helpful and some of it wasn't. But fast forward 20 odd years to getting made redundant, and I was made redundant after a career in homelessness, and there was a lot of different factors happening. I went back to university. I managed to negotiate a voluntary redundancy package that meant I could afford to go back to university for a while. I did a leadership and performance coaching qualification, which doesn't sound like anything like mindfulness. But there were other coaches on that course. It was in Northumbria University, and it was a legitimate coaching qualification. There were other practicing coaches, business coaches, who already had a clientele, and they were doing this course for legitimacy. They wanted to have the qualification. And they kept on talking about this thing called mindfulness that they did. What's that? And I certainly hadn't come across it, rather surprisingly in retrospect, in my days of working in homelessness and mental health and drugs and alcohol. But they kept on talking about this thing called mindfulness that they used for their practice, and that they also brought and used with their clients from time to time. I thought, well, I'll find out a bit more about this. And a couple of other things happened at the same time. And certainly historically, I've not been one to believe in all things happen for a reason and all that sort of stuff.
That's a different episode in itself, isn't it?
Altogether. But my wife got sent a couple of books by her brother to help her sleep, which again has got nothing to do with mindfulness. Although there is a lot of evidence that regular practice helps you sleep and improves sleep patterns and the quality of sleep. The two books were Full Catastrophe Living by John Kabat-Zinn, and a very new publication at that time called Finding Peace in a Frantic World, an introduction to mindfulness by Mark Williams and Danny Penman, which was introducing mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, and a more accessible version of it for the general public. And she read them and said they really were helping her sleep, and I should read them because they would help me. And I read a few pages of them, and I thought, well, this is the stuff I've always done. So I slipped into Geordie there for a second.
You did slip into Geordie. Shall I translate in case there's any non-Geordie listeners?
It's what I'd always done. I'd always behaved. So it sounded familiar, but didn't seem groundbreaking or anything. But that was only a few pages. But again, it was this word mindfulness was coming in. Then we went on holiday, and because I'd been made redundant, I had a little bit of money from the package, from the redundancy package. It wasn't exactly well heeled or anything, so it was a fairly low-cost holiday to the west coast of Scotland, beautiful part of the country.
Oh, yes.
And I was stopping in Dumfries. And we were looking at a map of the area and places to go. And there was this, so on this map there was this monastery in the middle of nowhere called Sami Ling. So it wasn't a Christian monastery. It was a Buddhist monastery. I thought that's really intriguing. I'm fascinated by the fact that it's there. So I thought we'll go and visit, and went and visited. It turns out that the organisation I later trained with, the Mindfulness Association, are based there, run a lot of their training from there. And again, there was a lot of stuff around mindfulness, a lot of stuff around Buddhism as well. But it just seemed to be that this was coming at me from all quarters. I then got a job managing a drug and alcohol rehab. And this is where it kind of all combined as one. There was a couple of people who would come in and work with the clients, doing meditation, doing Tai Chi, doing yoga, doing acupuncture. And I realised that the people who were further on in their recovery, whose recovery seemed more stable, were the ones who were going to those classes. Others were getting one-to-one counselling and therapy and stuff. But it was those people that seemed to really be changing in a positive way. So I had to explore this a little bit more. Sadly got made redundant again. I suppose this is the last bit of my journey, I suppose. Or the start of the next journey.
The journey's not over.
The journey certainly isn't over. But a key stopping off point in my journey. Got made redundant. I'll not bore you with the other work that I was doing, but somebody approached me and asked me if I would help set up a charity called Space for Peace, which was about celebrating and recognising and raising awareness of International Peace Day, 21st of September every year.
And what happens the day before Peace Day?
That's International Speak Like a Pirate Day.
I always get the two mixed up.
Yeah, that doesn't have the same UN recognition, but has much more recognition from the BBC, particularly on Radio 1, who really like International Speak Like a Pirate Day, but very rarely mention Peace Day. I like BBC. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon currently of everyone knocking the BBC. It's just ironic that more people know about that than Peace Day. So we're setting this charity up. It was about creating physical spaces in local communities, deprived communities predominantly. Yeah, so I helped set up this charity, and it had two purposes. One was create physical spaces, and then to use those spaces to help people find peace in their local community, but also peace with themselves. And I'd heard all about this thing. I've read a lot now about this thing called mindfulness, and that was Finding Peace in a Frantic World was the title of that book. So I thought, I need to use these spaces to help bring mindfulness to people.
It's all coming together.
But I'm not a mindfulness teacher. I don't even practice it, really. I've read the book and I've done a bit of the meditations and stuff, but it's early days. I need to find a mindfulness teacher, so I set out to find mindfulness teachers. Found one whose attitude, values, beliefs aligned with mine, as you well know, Rachel, and went on a course with said tutor, with yourself. And I was so, the title of this podcast, Cynic's Guide to Hippie Shit, I was really quite cynical.
Can I just jump in there with my experience of teaching that course? So I was teaching this course, and there was about six or eight people in the course, and one of them was yourself.
Yeah. And
it's interesting, isn't it, how we often kind of project onto other people what we think that they're thinking. And there's always some quiet people on courses, and there's some people who are, ask lots of questions, and then there was this one bloke who just, for the entire course, looked like he thought I was talking absolute bollocks. And, of course, that was you.
Yeah.
And I was like, what, really trying to figure out what was going on in your head and, why you hated me. And then at the last session, the end of the last session, you said, you took me aside, like, oh, can we go for a drink and discuss things? And I was like, Okay. And we ended up, you explained what actually you got from the course, which was completely the opposite of what I expected. Yeah. And do you want to go in from there?
Yeah, I'll go in from there, definitely, yeah. But I'll go back to the beginning, because my motivation for doing that course was not about how mindfulness was going to help me. It was not about how mindfulness was going to change anything. It was about, if I'm totally honest, at day one, this young lass is going to teach me to be a mindfulness teacher. Well, she's not going to train me to be a mindfulness teacher, because that's not what they say, but I'll just really pay attention to what she says, what she does, how she delivers it, and then I'll just deliver this stuff.
Copy some techniques. This
is going to be dead easy. And
I'm just basking in this young.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Oh, you were doing so well.
But also that means I'm a lot older too. The first few weeks, I was really just trying to focus on trying to work out what it was you were saying, how you were saying it. So I was really trying to focus my attention on that, rather than necessarily, I was doing the practices, and I was realizing that there was something happening, and I couldn't work out what. But I knew that it was kind of something was going on. So I was becoming increasingly intrigued by it, whilst also trying to pull myself back to, actually, I'm here to learn how to do this so I can make some money. And save some money, so I don't have to pay anyone else to deliver it. By about week 5, I think I realised that I was not going to be able to deliver this stuff. And thought, right, I'll just continue with this, and maybe over time I can, but I need to really get this stuff. So at the end, asking you for a drink, my motivation had become somewhat different. It had become like, look, I need someone to deliver stuff through Space 4, on behalf of Space for Peace. And I've got some opportunity, and it wasn't long, it wasn't at that specific time. It was within a few weeks that I managed to secure a contract with an organisation to deliver a mindfulness program. And I wasn't in a position to deliver it. And you delivered it, which was great. We got on quite well. It was a client group that I was much more familiar with from my past employment experience, and I supported you on delivering that course, and we got on really well. And there were elements of that training where I think that we worked really well together, and that was really effective. I think that led to things that happened in the future that got me involved directly with mindfulness-based therapies. And so my journey progressed. The bit for me where mindfulness really came in, though, I was practicing it, I was appreciating it, I was happier, I was more content, everything was going a lot better than it had done for a few years. And then suddenly I got struck down with what was a mysterious illness at first. The doctors and hospitals couldn't work out what it was for a while, but it was really scary. I was being rushed into hospital, I was being kept in, I had dangerous temperature levels and various other things going on. And I don't think I would have coped with it anywhere near as well as I did if I hadn't already had a mindfulness practice. And the mindfulness didn't make the pain go away. It didn't make me get any better physically. But it kept me grounded. It stopped me from panicking. It stopped me from getting overwhelmed by what was going on. And has continued to do so. I've got a chronic illness that is ongoing, and most of the time I feel fine. Occasionally it flares up, and without the mindfulness, I think I would have really struggled. I know that I would have been in a very different position if I'd still been working for other people, and I hadn't been practicing mindfulness. I would have probably been long-term sick by now. Mindfulness doesn't change what happens to you, but it changes how you respond to what happens to you. And it was my personal experience more than anything else that meant that this part of my journey is about sharing the benefits to as many people as possible.
I think that hearing you share that, particularly about your own physical illness, but hearing about your own experience is a really good way of maybe appealing to the cynic. You know, that kind of, you know, you're not preaching, this is something that can help you. What you're doing is you're very kindly sharing your story about how it helped you.
Yes, without doubt. And I'm not preaching that this is going to change your life forever. I'm not preaching that it's going to make bad things stop happening, because it ain't. It ain't going to stop bad things happening, because that's life. But it can help you navigate those bad things more effectively.